Welcome, my name's Chris, and this is part 2 of a lesson on what we can learn from the song Something by the Beatles. In part 1 went over numbers 1 through 3 on this chart here, mainly dealing with the more beginner side of things on this song, kind of like learning the song, getting an initial understanding of chords in a key, and some of these more detailed chords like 7 chords. This part 2 will be on the 4 through 6 on this, and it's going to get into some a little bit headier topics, so for more intermediate or advanced musicians. At any level though, this might be beneficial for musical contextual thinking and how you want to work through songs in general, how you want to understand songs, how you want to learn them, and this stuff we can build on ultimately. That's the goal, right? We were trying to not have a separate kind of eating one fish at a time, but learning how to fish here. Teaching our ear how to hear these numbers, how to have an understanding of all these chords outside of the key, and so on. So I want to reiterate real quick on something I left off on part 1, and it's on the, actually the tiny harmony, number 2. So I touch on one of those things, which was the C of the song, going to C major 7, going to C7. That's one of those moments where we have this little line cliche idea. Just a fancy term for moving one note in a chord usually, and it kind of changes the quality of the chord. The other time that happens in the A section of the song is the A minor part. We have this kind of Stairway to Heaven-esque walk down, right? The other section I touched on in the last part that I wanted to reiterate here is the bridge. We have the same idea, this little walk down motion, but it's just on the A chord. And it's from the 1 of the A, so we have A major 7, and then we have, that's the 7, right, in the key of A, and then the 6, F sharp, going down to the 5. And that's in the scale, that's in the same key. That's the one I didn't touch on as much. Again, you'll hear that a lot. And I will actually have a video breaking this song down on a guitar specifically, not really talking about any of the theory, just how I would play on a guitar. I think every song introduces opportunities to figure out what's the best way to play the song on guitar. It's kind of a cool puzzle. And a really good song usually has different possibilities. It's not just one way. You can get really in the weeds here and look up what's, George Harrison playing on something. And there's merit to that. I do think that largely we misplace our efforts here though in music learning when we're trying to just be exact. We're kind of trying to copy the exact motions of someone or the exact part and expect that to make us better automatically. That I found out it doesn't. I think it's more having a command of the overall gist and feeling free to take some liberties when you can. And we're also doing things, we're matching our own skill level. We're adapting it to fit our taste and our needs and all that. So jumping into this part 2 stuff, number 4. So secondary dominance. This is a term used in classical music and in jazz sometimes to reference these chords outside of the key. And it's actually pretty simple if you have an understanding of numbers especially. A secondary dominant is a 5 chord of not the 5 chord in a key. So in the case, the first one we see it in something is in the A section. So we have the C chord, right? C major 7, C7, and this C7 wants to lead to F. And the reason is because in the key of F, right, C7 is a 5. Making C7 gives it this pull to F. Right, which is really cool. So we would call this the 5 of 4, right? When I write down charts, I don't use that kind of terminology because it becomes very hard to think. Again, I think a big error we commit in music study and learning songs is that we get just too in the weeds, too dogmatic. So in theory class, if you take theory in college, you would analyze this song as 5 of 4. But here, I would probably just put 1, 7. So like, on the chart, that's what I put. Put like 1 dominant 7, just 1 7 chord. That takes me to 4, right? That's the pragmatic way of looking at that, in my opinion. That makes it a little bit easier to think through. The other time we have a secondary dominant in the A section is the D7, which is not in the key again, right? Or it could be D, but often these secondary dominants are made dominant, like a 7 chord, just to give it a bigger pull. And this D7, if you look at where it's going to G and you assume, okay, that D7 might be, it's out of the key, maybe it's a dominant chord. So you can say, if that D's the 5, what's 1? And the next chord, it would be the 1, right? G. So that would be the 5 of 5. A really good way to explore this that I learned from a jazz educator at Open Studio. I will link their channel if you're interested, more jazz centric. But this is a great warm up for anyone really serious about studying harmony. Play the diatonic chords in a key, right? So you can go through C, D minor, E minor, F, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's the first step. So you have to be able to do that. If you want to go deeper, which is secondary dominants, really what they're doing is they're kind of pulling us more, adding more detail, pulling us more to the following chord and kind of adding a little bit more richness to the harmony. What we can do is practice secondary dominants of all the diatonic chords. A mouthful to say, play the 5 chord of everything. So I can go 1, start on the 1 chord, and then instead of playing right to the 2, I want to play the 5 of 2, which would be like an A7, right? So if I was making a number chart, I would just call this a 6 chord, right? Going to whatever. It is the 5 of 2 though. That's kind of the idea. So if I go through this really quick, you'll find all these sounds and kind of depth to diatonic chords, and this is a great way to study and to really make this 5 to 1 thing more prescient and available to us. And of course it's an ear thing too, ultimately. Doesn't matter what these are called, but if I hear in a song that sound, I want to kind of be able to identify it. Oh, that sounds like a 6 going to 2, or the 5 of, yeah, I'm not thinking 5 of 6 going to 2. I'm just hearing it. I tend to hear it in the number, kind of just a 6 chord, major though, instead of minor, going to a 2, right? But it's a 5 of 2. So if I do that really briefly in the key of C, for all these chords, I would get this. C, 5 of 2, 2. Now I have to think, what's the 5 of 3? Right, so E minor is the 3, and a 5 chord is always major, right? So I can play B7, and here's my E minor. Kind of want to go, that's how the voice movement, but B7, E minor, and then I think, okay, 5 of 4, and 4 is F, the 5 would be C, and instead of playing C, I'm going to play C7, just to really give it that flavor. And that takes me to the 4 chord. Now I can do 5 of 5, like we've done in this song, right? 5 of 6. And then here on the 7, we can't really do a 5 chord to the 7. Diminished chords are just so unstable. So I'm just going to play 5, going back to 1. So I get, what's the next one? C7, F, D7, G, 6, and then just a 5, back to 1. This is a great way to really stretch out, right? And you'll notice all those 5 chords outside of the key are actually, they're chords we tend to be able to play on guitar, in a good key on guitar, like meaning that they're usually pretty friendly. Not always. If I do it in the key of G briefly, let's see what happens. So we get 1, secondary dominant, 2, secondary dominant would be F sharp or F sharp 7, right, to the 3, right? So F sharp 7 is not a great chord, F sharp. Secondary dominant to the 4 chord, secondary dominant to the 5 chord, secondary dominant to the 6, right, and then finally like maybe D7. So let me see if that sounds normal, playing it. I have the key of C in my head, that's the problem. I have to kind of clear it. So you can practice it, right? But there's a certain sound to this. You're kind of like playing all those diatonic chords and really zooming in, and it sounds really cool. And again, these all are used in popular music. The most common would probably be the 5 of 5, and then the 5 of 4 maybe, and you'll hear these more in jazz. It is good to practice this though, and really what we're doing is kind of practicing playing the circle of fifths and kind of going backwards in it, kind of playing it, you know, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Right, we're playing like E, A, D, G, C. Those are all resolving. That's what 5 chords do, they resolve to the next one. That's a little bit higher level, but great exercise if you're kind of ready for it. If you're hungry to learn more harmony, I would recommend secondary dominant practice. The other part of the number 4 is secondary subdominant. So this is not really a concept in classical music. I'm just kind of co-opting this idea from the secondary dominant. So dominant means 5, right? It's the 5 chord typically in a song. Subdominant is the 4 chord. So this is kind of the idea of doing the 4 chord of something a lot. And where this comes up is in the bridge when we have G. So we have this little walk down, da da da, da da 4, flat 7. So this G chord is not in the key of A, right? Flat 7 is like a really obvious, or it's a really popular sound, right? So many songs use this kind of sound. And you'll notice if I go flat 7, 4, 1, that sounds great. That's so many songs, right? And the idea is that flat 7, you can kind of think of it as a temporary 4 to the 4, right? So G is 4 to D, which is 4 to A. If I keep on doing that, which is also a good exercise, it will take you going which direction? I guess up the circle of fourths, right? So if I think backwards from there, so G, I could think, what's the 4 of this? Which would be C. And then I could go to G, and I could go to D, and go to A, right? So I could have a song in A, and I could kind of back cycle a lot. I could go from the 4 of C, which would be F. So now I could go like F, C, G, D, A, which is really cool, right? It just takes you on a journey. And thinking of fourths and fifths really freely is a kind of a higher level thing, but it's really good practice, and it helps you think outside of the key a little bit and exercises our understanding of what are the typical chords outside of the key. It's stuff like this, right? It's like the secondary dominant especially. The subdominant thing, the flat 7 is the most common, but if you take that back far enough, you get into, like in the key of C, the 4 chord is F, right? The 4 chord of that's B flat. The 4 chord of that's E flat, and E flat comes up later on in the song. So you kind of get some of those flavors, which is really cool. So if you play like E flat, B flat, F to C, and I kind of hear that, you can continue on, right? You can just go on over and over again, and you get all these great sounds. But it's kind of whatever key you want to land on, that's the arrival point. Okay, moving on to number 5. Riff practice in numbers. So there's a couple riffs in this tune, and I'm using the term riff here just to refer to like a melodic thing, not really any chord, just single notes. And this seems a little needless at first to think of this in numbers, but I do think most pro musicians can do this, and if you're really wanting to be able to hear stuff contextually, this is a good idea. So the first riff that we have is in the key of A. It's kind of halfway through the bridge. We get, where we just left off, we get 4 chord, 4 of that, and then we go bum, bum, bum. So we have this A, G sharp, G, F sharp, F, E. So kind of chromatic thing from 1 in the key to 5. And this is helpful to think, like, what would those numbers be? And, you know, it's weird and unfamiliar until it isn't. The overall intuition here is that thinking in numbers trains your ear, it trains your brain to really think contextually, right? I'm just gonna say that a million times. That's the whole point of this. So we have 1, 7, flat 7, 6, flat 6, 5. Any way of formulating that's not just the explicit details of like, what's the tablature, right? Which is fine if that's the level you're at. But that tablature doesn't help us learn any other song, right? And if I hear a song that goes like, okay, that's going down to 6, right? What if it goes down more? Flat 6 to 5, right? It's all about that bass motion and hearing the personality that these notes have. And that is just chromatic as well. 1, 7, flat 7, 6, flat 6, 5. And then the other lick is, or riff, is in the bridge, at the end of the bridge, in the key of C. So we have a little similar motion, but it's different. And we have 1, 7, 6. Now we're thinking in C, right, where C is 1. 1, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. Right, you can play that a few different ways. 3, 2, 1. And that's kind of cool. I just noticed this, that the first lick in the song that was just everyone playing the notes, the A one, it's chromatic. Just like the first little, right at the beginning, we have this chromatic kind of thing in the C chord. And then the second one is in the key. So we have the key of C, 1, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. And that's really cool. That mirrors the C thing and the A thing, which is in the key. So the C thing is chromatic and the A thing is not. Probably a total accident, but it's cool. So again, I'm able to really easily hear riffs because I'm thinking and I'm hearing. I say thinking, I'm really hearing those riffs and numbers. I know that's hard, but you know, if you practice a little bit every day, it gets easier and easier just to hear everything in numbers as much as you can. It's a little bit harder in, I find, minor tunes, but it's still useful. Like, I'll just do one example here. Let's say I hear Seven Nation Army for the first time ever, right? And I hear the riff, and I'm like, okay, this sounds like 1. And then what's that second note? And I'm trying to figure it out, and I could, you know, eventually practice hearing in minor, like the numbers 1, 2, 3, 1, 3. And then here I can hear the scale just go down, 1, 7, 6, 5. And so it's a combination of hearing stepwise motion in a scale, and also really just dialing into those numbers over and over and over again. Your ear will thank you. I think our ear is looking for context. Our ear is kind of like, help me out, like label this stuff, tell me what it means. You know, 7th fret means nothing, except it just tells you where to put your hand, but it kind of leaves you nothing else. And even if I say, oh, the riff is E, G, E, D, C, B, that doesn't tell me much. But if I can start thinking in numbers, my ear will help me to cash this in anything, right? To like be able to invest this knowledge into every tune I learn. Because then if I'm playing a gig and the guy's like, there's a riff, or whoever I'm playing with says there's a riff in this song, and it goes like 1 up to 3 up to 4, sharp 4, 5. Or let's say I want to play Seven Nation Army in another song or another key. Trying to find the best way to play that. But I know where to play it, right? And then flat 3, 4, right? It's not like arbitrary. It's not, I'm not just getting drowning information or depending on only explicit information. There's so many patterns in music, and it's always comes back to numbers and what key you're in. And exercising that information contextually and giving your brain a lot of tagging, right? We're just tagging the info to the sound, and our ear and our brain and our fingers and everything comes together, and you'll hear, you know, 500 songs with that kind of thing in it. You'll hear like, what is it, that one, Paranoid, right? All this stuff just gets repeated so many times. And this chromatic stuff does a lot too, especially if you play a lot of music with bass lines, R&B songs, stuff like that. Rock songs in general tend to do this sort of thing, right? And then also the stepwise scalar kind of thing, where we just have it down in this scale, right? Finally, number 6. I'm just going to briefly talk about the relationship of C to A. This is kind of a cool relationship, right? The main reason I would say is that A is minor in the key of C, right? So this is our like main character, right? Everyday good guy, everyone wants to root for him. And then this is our main kind of melancholy, what I wouldn't say antagonist, but right, it has just that negative pull. And so when this becomes this, it's quite surprising, right? It's pretty cool. And it really changes the whole vibe of that bridge. It's just so bright. What's right before that? We get Oh yeah, A minor. And then we get F, E flat, we'll talk about that. G, and we're expecting C, but we get G, A, which is cool, right? And that G is kind of related to A via that kind of secondary subdominant kind of thing, right? It can lead to A, but it's just a sudden surprise to go to that A major instead of A minor. That's the first kind of thing that's kind of cool. And the third, like C and A are a third apart. Those tend to really be great. That's a great interval for modulating. There's a few reasons, but like one more example would be like the E in the key of C. 3, pretty, like this is how this hits me. I will be doing a video about the emotional states of all the notes in the major scale, right? All the numbers. So 3, just beautiful. It's like the heart of the chord, right? And 3 in the context of an A chord, or sorry, the E, however. Now just even hum this if you can, if you're at a place where, just find that wherever, here, or, I can't play it, sing it up there. Right? Year or year. Then keep on humming that note, and then I want to go to the other. Right? That is the whole point of ear training, is to feel that. Feel what that feels like, and it's going to be different for everybody. C, E. So here we have the 3 of the chord. Now it's the 5, right? Now it's the 7, right? You can get really exploratory with this. This is like a jazzer's perspective on this, right? The flat 5. That wants to resolve now, right? But here it's beautiful. And here it's stable. 5, right? 5 to me feels like a wall. It's like stability. It's like the foundation is strengthened. They don't use that explicitly in this song, but there's these little through points that we can connect 2 different keys via like one common note, or 2 different chords, right? So it's kind of cool. I just wanted to touch on that. And again, not super common in popular music to do this kind of modulation. Usually we just go up a half step or up a whole step. That's typically what happens. But I love these kind of more clever modulations that take you, like, you know, we have here, and then we go A minor, and all of a sudden, we, you know, a lot of A minor stuff in the first part, and then A major out of nowhere. And then they figure out, okay, I can go, whoever, I guess George wrote this song, 4, 5, 7, and now this becomes 5, back to C, which is beautiful, right? It's just like this G kind of works in both keys. It's the primary, it's a really fundamental thing in the key of C, but in the key of A, it still works. So, finally, the E flat. So, how I kind of think about this chord and how it works, the first thing I might say is if you back cycle enough with fourths, you get the E flat. So in the key of C, the 4 of this is F, the 4 of that's B flat, the 4 of that's E flat. So that's kind of cool, but I think it works here because the melody in that riff at the beginning, so it's like, right, and then we have this B flat, B, C. So that's kind of chromatically approaching 1, and they harmonize that B flat with like an E flat. I'll go over this more in the guitar tutorial on this song, but I like to play it like this, which is like 3rd fret on thickest, 1st on D, and 3rd on G. It's like a little kind of shell voicing of that with the 3rd in the bass. And that really works great to go, right? So I could go like, didn't play it great, but I get that voice leading in there. So that's kind of the rationale, right? If the E flat's unexpected, it's really cool. And E flat and G are a 3rd apart. E flat, G, C. Really takes our ears on a journey, right? And also we just have that really smooth thing on top. And when I hear that E flat in a song, I hear the flat 3, right? Because I've just told my brain enough. That's the sound of flat 3. It's a certain vibe. If I'm in the key of A, and I hear C, right? Flat 3, 5, 1, whatever. I try to reiterate as a teacher, this is an automatic process. If you just feed your ear context and numbers, it will eventually be like, I got this. I got it. I can play this song for you. I'll teach this song to you for free. You can just like start to hear the chords and colors in music. That's all it takes. But if you never do this process or come at it from an abstract way, it's never going to really click. So I'll leave it at that today. I hope this has been helpful. To reiterate real quick, I would look into being able to play secondary dominance, which is just a temporary 5 chord to not the 5, or sorry, to not 1. So you can go through a key, practice this. You know, of course, something uses it, but this is how you cash it in. Is you ask yourself, can I play every chord in the key of C? And between them, to lead to the next chord, can I play the 5? So 1, 5 of 2, 2, 5 of 3, 3. This is a little harder on guitar than piano, but it's really good to do in like the common guitar keys like C, G, D. It's going to show you some new stuff and it will get you thinking, right? It's just going to really help you utilize this understanding. Same on secondary dominance, you can practice playing the 4 to the next chord. So that'd be kind of cool. I've never even done that. So that'd be more like thinking backwards from C. So thinking, what's the 4 of this? F to C. And then what's the 4 of F? B flat. What's the 4 of that? E flat. And you get back far enough, you can play all 12 chords, all 12 major chords and lead to C, which is a really cool sound. And then finally, number 5, or not finally, riff practice and numbers. Just think about any riff you know contextually, right? So we have those 2. We have the one in A, that is chromatic, 1, 7, flat 7, 6, flat 5, or flat 6, 5. And you can use other terms, sharp 5, 5, And then the other one, C, we have 1, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. And then finally we have C to A, just talking about the significance of that sound, of that kind of brightness going from here to here, which is really cool. And then we just camp out at A for a little bit. And then the E flat chord, I think of it mainly as a good way to harmonize that B flat. And it's also just kind of surprising. So if you're a songwriter looking for some different sounds that you typically don't play, just try some stuff, right? All the rules can be broken. And once you understand that and understand the rules well enough to break them, you have an intuition and your music feels like it has a sense of direction and confidence to, try, what if I play the 4 chord before this, right? I could do A flat, E flat, G, which is cool, right? I never would have thought of that unless I kind of tried different things. And the Beatles might have even gone at a different angle of just thinking, what notes does this, or what chords does this B flat appear in? That's a good way to think of it too. So you could just try B flat to G, right? That's cool. I dig that. So, right? Or however, I was playing it like this. E flat, there's other chords with B flat in there you could try. So that's kind of the line of thinking there. So I have to run, but I'll leave you at that. I will be back soon with a guitar tutorial on this song. I do want to get my piano system up for videos, and I'll do a piano tutorial as well. I'm just going to talk about how I actually play this song. I hope this has been helpful. Make sure and like and subscribe, comment, all that if you have any questions on any of these ideas, and I will see you next time. Thanks.